welcome to another edition of Pitch BrandTalk. I'm very happy to have with me today Mr. Kunal Sharma. He's the head of marketing and business head, modern trade and e-commerce at KRBL. Now, KRBL, if you don't know the company's name, is the parent company of a brand which all of us probably use in our home, which is India Gate Basmati Rice. Kunal, welcome.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for having me, Simran.
Kunal, I just wanted to start off with your latest campaign, which is focused on Maharashtra, which is Swat Samriddhi Ka. So, what was the specific factors which influenced this campaign, and why Maharashtra, and why the focus on Maharashtra?
Sure. So, Simran, I'll just give you a little bit of a context of why we did this. When you look at the basmati market in India, Maharashtra happens to be the largest market for basmati, with about 13% contribution of in-house consumption happening in that state. Secondly, if you look at us as a brand, that's one market. In fact, while at a pan-India level we are the number one player by far, that's one relatively weaker market for us because that's been a market where we've traditionally not been strong, right? So one of the reasons for focus and a very regional campaign in that market has been our relatively what I would say number two position in that market. So that's been the trigger for that. Having said that, there are a lot of interesting consumer insights that have emerged. So we started by doing a very detailed consumer understanding in that market of why we've not really been able to take the pole position in that market. And while there were a lot of interesting insights that emerged in terms of product, in terms of consumption of rice in that market, in terms of the packaging that we take to the market, and we've frankly made all of those changes before we launched this campaign. So it's just not a singular campaign that we've launched. We've made certain fundamental changes in terms of the product offerings, in terms of the packaging, and the campaign comes at the end of it, which is in a way a closure of all the key marketing elements that we needed to correct for that market. Now we're really hopeful that this campaign is going to really help us make significant inroads into that market. So just to give you some numbers, we've really significantly also ramped up our distribution in that market. We've seen a huge movement in terms of market shares in that market in the last couple of years, to the tune of about, I would say about 1,000 basis points, which is huge if you
Okay.
look at the category. I think this campaign is going to help us clearly drive consumer brand preference for brand India Gate in that market and strengthen our position going forward. So that's the expectation from this campaign.
Now, your team was just telling me that, Maharashtra contributes to nearly 13% of national basmati consumption, which is like more than 10% of overall India consumption. But, when you see this uptick for growth, what are the kind of metrics that you're looking to achieve? Because you just mentioned your market share has gone up, you have ramped up your distribution. So, what are the metrics that you're looking at that will make you, happy that yes, we've done our job?
Yeah. So in Maharashtra, if you were to look at our presence, see, Bombay is a fairly cosmopolitan audience, so we enjoy our national stature in that market. So we are by far the leader in Bombay. But when I look at the non-Bombay Maharashtra market, that's one market. That's one part of that market where we are definitely not the number one player, right? Um, so if you ask me what are the metrics that we are looking at, one, we're definitely looking at market share as a metric, and we are looking at an aggressive gain in market share post all these interventions that we have done in those parts of Maharashtra, and we are measuring that consistently in terms of progress quarter on quarter and how we are moving. The second metric that we will definitely look at is our brand top of mind, brand consideration scores, right? Essentially from the point of view that if I were to look at the pan India numbers, they are significantly higher than a Maharashtra, right? So this campaign which we have launched is essentially intended to bring India Gate as a brand closer to the Marathi consumer, or the so-called Marathi Manus that we all know of, right? So that we are able to relate better with the consumer. So I think these are the two key metrics that we are looking at in terms of progress in the Maharashtra agenda.
KRBL has taken this regional strategy over the last couple of years. You moved from being, national to looking at each state or each market individually. Now, you have also, been stated in the past that you have very key objective for each regional market. I'm just curious that can you share with us what are some of the objectives in any of the market? I'm not asking for all, obviously. Say if you were just to, you just spoke about Maharashtra. So say
Yeah,
if you were to say either Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or West Bengal,
right.
what is your key objective just so that we can understand it better?
Sure, sure. No, I think, Simran, I think broadly there are three buckets. One where we just spoke about Maharashtra. The other bucket is the larger Hindi speaking market belt, which includes West Bengal, where large part of basmati consumption is in the form of loose, right? Loose khula packaged, versus
Hmm.
packaged. Uh, and essentially, if you look at this entire belt, which is North and West Bengal, uh, our biggest source of business or competition is loose. We don't, because we are by far the market leader in all of these markets,
Hmm.
right? So, and interestingly, one other point that I want to bring to the fore is that our number two player in each market, even in the branded space, is very different. So our number two player in Delhi versus a number two player in West Bengal are very different, right? So essentially, our clear strategy there is to drive consumers who are buying loose basmati today to, you know, packaged basmati. As a market leader, that's the task we have defined for ourselves. So that's the second bucket of strategy. The third bucket of strategy is for the southern markets, essentially, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, where, like you spoke in an example earlier, biryani essentially is equated to basmati, right? So basmati and biryani go together. We hold about 70% plus market share in those markets, right? So if I have to build a growth strategy for the southern part of India, then I have to look beyond just biryani usage that basmati is used for. So in south, we are working towards driving consideration of building basmati usage beyond only biryani, right? And we've actually, where this came from is when we looked at trends in metros like Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad. We saw consumers trying, starting to use basmati for things like lemon rice, coconut rice, and those interesting stuff. So what we believe is that since this is a consumer trend we're picking up, as a leader, we are just trying to drive that consumption further, right? Through nudging consumers, through various influencers in that market, right? So that's a separate strategy that we are working on, especially for South, to drive growth for ourselves. So this, in a nutshell, is our three-pronged strategy for India.
And I must say, lemon rice with basmati rice does taste really nice. But
Yeah.
I'm also very curious, because you mentioned these two campaigns which you've done in the past. One was for your loose rice packaged rice is far more healthier and far more cleaner than loose rice. And also in the South, in Tamil Nadu in particular, you had done this, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, experiments with basmati. But I'm very curious, how are your investments now going? Because are you looking at like pan in national campaigns, or are you looking more in say regional campaigns? So are your investments now skewed more towards regional vis-a-vis national campaigns, or how is it panning out?
So let me try and give you a picture of how our media mix has changed basis the strategy change. One definite change that we are seeing is the investment significantly shifting towards digital, right? Also, to quote some numbers to you, if you look at our current modern trade e-commerce contribution of business to our consumer pack business, it's growing very fast, and it's currently at about 30% of our consumer pack business in India. So very clearly showing that there is a significant audience which is buying India Gate or packaged basmati, which has a digital audience affinity, right? And some of these tasks that we are doing in terms of behavior change will get driven through digital as one core pillar of change in strategy. So that's one. So we see investments on digital slowly and steadily moving up to about 25 to 30% of our overall marketing investments, right? That's one. The second piece, which you spoke about, is how much of monies do we look at it from regional. I just feel that barring metros, right? Large part of reach in non metro towns, even in South or in West Bengal for that matter, will come through regional media. And why we are doing this is also an important data point. We are also seeing that packaged basmati consumption is growing faster in tier 1 and tier 2 towns, where if you look at the
Okay.
media mix, the regional media is going to play a more important role. So keeping all of these in mind, we are also trying to go more regional. So for Maharashtra, for example, right, non-Bombay Maharashtra, you have to use regional media to increase your reach in those
True.
markets, right? So we're going there, and so you would see a more healthy mix, I would say, in terms of media representation. And the third thing, which we have shifted or pivoted, I would say, is in terms of our weeks of presence in media, right? Earlier, we used to run more on a campaign kind of a thing, and we've now extended our intent in terms of media presence to about 32 to 33 weeks on air, in the entire financial year. More because this is a staple category, more a regular purchase category, and that's how we're, kind of shifting our media strategy.
I just want to also, I was looking at your website and your offerings have it really increased. You've expanded not just to basmati, but you're also looking at regional rice. And I saw, you entered kolam rice, ponni rice, kaima rice, idli rava, etc. So this is also a drive towards premiumization. So how is the response been? And the second is, like I'm based out of Chennai, where ponni rice and even in the south, kolam rice has a huge market, probably a bigger market share than basmati. So how
Right.
has this helped you? Has it helped KRBL gain market share, especially now that you've ventured into the regional rice category?
Right. Right. No, very interesting question, Simran. I think, like you rightly mentioned, if you look at the overall rice market in India, basmati is a very small pie out of that, right?
True.
The regional rices in India, which is 10,000 plus upwards in terms of variety in India, is a much bigger market, right? But having said that, that behaves largely like a commodity, right? And large part, and an even larger part of that gets sold as loose in India. So we are only talking about our space of play in the regional market as the premium or top of the pyramid there, where consumers are willing to pay a premium for differentiation, right, and a brand. Um, so having said that, I would say it's as big a market as basmati is, even that top of the pyramid, right? So
Hmm.
it's a huge market. Secondly, in terms of progress, I think we've picked up South and Maharashtra as key markets to drive regional rice for ourselves. But we are going in a very staggered manner. For example, we are building up Bangalore right now as a focus market for ourselves to build, regional rice in that market. And till now, our efforts have been largely focused on distribution and making our products available in retail stores. But going forward, we definitely look at activating consumer awareness campaigns around our regional rice also. That would be the next logical step. Secondly, just to give you an indication in terms of how we are progressing, our last year financial year, we clocked about 200 crores revenue purely out of our regional rice portfolio. And we see that scaling up much faster than the rest of the portfolio in the coming times. So I think that's a big thing that's happened. 200 crores in through 1 year effort, I think, and given the size of the market, we definitely see huge potential in scaling that up.
We spoke about your media mix, but I was looking over all your marketing strategies, through last 1 year or 2 years. I liked, you'd experimented with virtual reality where you
Yeah,
take the consumer through the entire journey, and you had started this off with Reliance Retail, and you had mentioned that you plan to expand it,
yeah,
and also you've experimented with big ticket properties like Big Boss, MasterChef. So, what
yeah.
next can we expect from KRBL in this, you know,
Sure.
space?
So if you look at our marketing efforts, let me try and call out what are the key things that we're trying to do, right? Um, what I spoke about in terms of the Hindi market and the South agenda, we believe these are long-term agenda for us. Yeah, they wouldn't change. Yeah, I mean, at least a 5 to 10 year time frame is what, as a strategy, this would continue to operate. So I think you will see a lot of, I would say, creative communication emerging out of that strategy and emerging from fundamental consumer insights, right? So all that we've done, you would see the second leg of all of that rolling out, very soon. So that's part one. Secondly, we are also doing a fundamental shift in terms of an entire new packaging launch, right? Which is a very big one for us. We're doing this after 20 years, so I can talk a little bit about that also. But that's one big one which we intend to take to our media piece in the fourth quarter, and that's a big campaign that we plan to roll out just to make consumers aware of this huge shift, right? And the third piece is the whole digital piece of it, and how we are trying to make the category a little bit more interesting and engaging, because otherwise this is probably staples being one of the low involvement categories,
Boring.
yeah, in the whole spectrum of FMCG. I think that's an attempt that we are trying to make, to how do we make this a more engaging and interesting category, to and be more meaningful to the consumer, right? So that's what we are also trying to do. Yeah.
You mentioned when you were speaking about Maharashtra, you mentioned you were changing the packaging,
Yeah.
etc., and etc. I remember when I spoke to you last, you had said that you'd conducted a consumer research with Landor, and you
Yeah.
had called it Educate and Empower,
Yeah.
where you were planning to revamp your portfolio packaging based on consumer insight. So, can you just tell us now that everything has been implemented, how it's panned out?
Yeah, so I think I would have a fair update for you on that. I think we've made good progress there, and as we speak, our new packaging is going out into the market. So that's something that will probably be fully available in the shelves by the month of January, I would say. But as we speak, packs have started moving and the transition has started happening. I think that's one of the most purposeful things that we've done, in a long time. This packaging change happens after about 20 years for India Gate, right? And I think it's just not an aesthetic packaging change. It's after 2 years of consumer research and development that we are bringing this to the market. Um, and it's anchored on fundamentally solving for consumers choice, right? And today, like we spoke, the traditional problem in this category is that consumers are just buying by price point, right? We've attempted to solve that, and probably our packaging change is a is an attempt to solve for that and make the consumer navigation and choice easier. I think that's going to be a very big enabler, right, for consumers to choose the right basmati for themselves and their family. So as the packs go into the market, we will probably be in a position to give you more details, but that's something that's happening. And in the fourth quarter, we plan to announce this whole change to our consumers also in a big way. So that's one big campaign that's coming up in quarter four.
Now, just if you could also shed some light on, your market share, because you're present across multiple touch points like general trade, modern trade, and also because you head modern trade and e-commerce. How's that growing?
Sure.
And the second part, which I do need to know, is quick commerce. That
Yeah.
has kind of just, what would I say? It's kind of probably exceeded everybody's expectations. So, how has that been?
So, like I told you first initially, that today our modern trade e-commerce contribution stands at about 30% of our revenue,
Hmm.
right? In the last couple of quarters, e-commerce obviously continues to grow at a disproportionate rate, and within e-commerce, I would like to call out quick commerce. I think
Hmm.
there's a fundamental behavior change that is happening. So there are two parts to the whole quick commerce growth that we are seeing. One is obviously their penetration in existing geographies is increasing. More and more people are finding the convenience that they're offering more relevant and hence adopting. The second thing is there's also a significant ramp up of dark stores that most of the quick commerce players are doing. So the growth is both, led by expansion of dark stores as well as growth in penetration in existing geographies. Obviously, that's helping brands. For us, I mean, you need to understand that it's also a strategically right thing to happen, because on quick commerce, on e-commerce, there is no loose basmati available. So for us, it's also playing a strategic role, because it's actually helping us fight that battle with loose basmati rice. uh, but at any point of time, I don't see the significance of general trade going out of the ecosystem, because it's a huge ecosystem in terms of reach and consumer reach, I would say, shopper reach. uh, Speaking of numbers, I think about 70% of our revenue of consumer pack still comes from general trade. And on general trade, we are actively ramping up our distribution, because if you look at numbers, packaged basmati is available only in about 7 to 7.5 lakh retail outlets against the universe of 1.2 crore retail outlets in India, right? So there is enough headroom to even grow general trade, right, which will help us grow our penetrations. So I think we don't feel that there's one channel which is more relevant than the other. But at the same point of time, we definitely see quick commerce scaling up very quickly in terms of revenue. Now, coming to market shares, I think we work with one thumb rule. The thumb rule is that we aspire for our e-commerce market share to be higher than modern trade, and modern trade to be higher than general trade, right? Because that's reflective of how strong our brand is, right? And we are constantly working to do that. But if you were to ask me, and as per our latest quarter reports, also you may have picked it up that we are gaining significant market shares. In spite of our leadership position, we are further consolidating to the extent of 300, 400 basis points across channels, right? Be it
Okay.
general trade, modern trade, and e-commerce. So I think from a market share perspective, we clearly see our leadership position getting further strengthened because of all that we are trying to do, either in terms of our distribution expansion, or in terms of our top of mind, or in terms of the brand's preference. So I think these three things clearly driving market shares for us.
We spoke about regional rice, but any other categories you're seeing to be growth drivers in the coming, like, health or the multi-benefit rice, new categories, and are you looking to go beyond rice and right
Sure.
adjacencies?
Sure. No, I think, Simran, we've stated this very clearly in a lot of our, interactions as a company. I think we definitely see one huge potential in growing the basmati space. Regional is another big opportunity that we are trying to do. We've definitely made forays beyond, our traditional portfolio. So, incidentally, we launched, I think, last year, December or January, we launched biryani masala, and that's really scaled up for us very well on modern trade and e-commerce. In fact, beyond our expectations in terms of the kind of revenue we were expecting out of it. So, very clearly, I see that to be a growth driver, and that's given us shoots of success, I would say, right? We plan to take this forward, so we're extending all of this going forward. Secondly, I think we're also looking at adjacent categories, and this is also been declared. So we are getting into edible oils in the next financial year, next quarter, which is quarter four.
Oils.
Yeah, we're launching healthy edible oils, and we're very close to the launch now. So about in a couple of months, the product would be in
So
the market.
cold pressed and all that.
No, not really. We are looking into the more the space where blended oils is there. So
Okay.
more the space of maybe where Marico and Fortune have a space of play through their brands of Saffola and Fortune Expert.
Now, because I also want to get your take on the importance of marketing technology, MarTech, and AI when it comes to how are you using it in KRBL, and how do you see this impacting KRBL as well as your category? You're increasing your investments in this space more significantly.
Yeah. So Simran, I have a slightly, if you may say, an alternate point of view on this. I
Please.
just feel that today a lot of brands are probably looking at technology as something that should be done just because for the sake of doing it. I think that's something that we're absolutely clear we don't want to do, right? We have to keep our consumer, our objectives, and our broad lay of the land in the context when we look at martech or AI, or for that matter anything else, right? Um what we want to do, Simran, is that, like I spoke to you about this whole piece on engagement in our category, and our category being low involvement. I think our agenda is to drive that, engagement upwards, right? And Martech, AI, and all of this play a significant role there. But we don't want that to become a constraint to our overall objective, right? So we are using MarTech, AI, etc., wherever it is required, but not beyond that at this point of stage, considering the category that we are in and are considering our core consumers, right? But we definitely feel that this is going to be an area of focus for us going forward, and we actively see if there is a role that it can play in a particular campaign, and then we adopt that, right? So that's how I would kind of put our view on this whole MarTech and AI capability piece.
And finally, I just want to know, you've increased your presence, you moved from a campaign led to having a more continuous presence. I believe it's 32 weeks now. And I just want to know, so what else can we expect from KRBL? Has this move, helped increase your brand recall also in the market share, because now you're present for more
Yeah,
than half the year?
yeah,
What else, then looking ahead, what else can we expect from the company? You've mentioned new categories you're entering, but
yeah,
beyond
yeah.
that,
No, I think if you were to look at that metric or that vector, I would say that the increased presence always helps the brand's top of mind and other saliency and other metrics. So that essentially is one vector which is helping our business grow, because all our business objectives through communication, the role that communication has to play, I think that's what we are trying to do through our continued presence, right? The second piece that we are working very solidly on, Simran, is to bring the brand and the brand's equity in this category significantly superior than anybody else, right? So, if I were to talk about brand equity, right? Uh, as per the latest researches that we have done, while we are the number one in terms of brand equity, the second brand equity in our category is loose rice. Yeah. So I think, and as I said, either in terms of market share or in terms of mind share, I think they are our biggest competition. So we are singularly focused in terms of how to clearly drive preference for packaged over loose. So that's one thing that we are trying to do from a business lens. But while all of that is at play, I think one thing that we definitely want to do is to build a distinct brand identity for ourselves, which is generally very difficult to do in a low involvement category, right? I mean, just to give you an example, if you look at Coke and Pepsi, very distinct identities, right? They may have their own mind share and or own other metrics, but the whole identity that they've been able to build because of the category that they've been in and the way they've done it, I think it's good inspiration for lower involvement categories, right? On obviously we can't go there, but we must aspire to get somewhere close to that. So that's a core piece that we are working on from the marketing team lens, and how to do that for brand India Gate.
but they're also big sponsors of cricket, and so it's so you would also be looking at going into that space, events and cricket and God knows what.
Yeah. So see, when we look at media, obviously, given our category, our penetrations, obviously we are not such huge spenders, but we always look at trying to use media effectively for ourselves, right? When I said, I think media is definitely something that we need to keep working on in terms of the landscape. The landscape is changing very dynamically, to be very honest. But I was talking more from the lens of how the brand is
Okay,
positioned and how the positioning
how's positioning?
can be made sharper, right?
Got it.
Either through all the things that they do, right, being more meaningful to building and feeding back to that same equity. So I think that's what I was talking about when I gave that example, and that's definitely an area that we are working consciously on and continuously to make improvements.
Thank you so much, Kunal, for taking the time out. It was lovely and very, very talking to you and very insightful.
Thanks, Simran. Always a pleasure talking to you.